Welcome to the Advancement Podcast. Our mission is to reach the lost in America by advancing leaders and churches so that communities are transformed. Join us as we discuss how to stay healthy as leaders, work in teams, and lead change. Come on, let's advance together.
Welcome back to another episode of the Advancement Podcast. If you enjoy what you're listening to, if you could subscribe or rate us on the podcast platform that you're listening to, that way you get all the content sent directly to you. If you're watching, you can like us on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. My name is Todd Barham. I'm the host of the Advancement Podcast, here today with Tim Ware. How you doing, Tim?
Just today only.
Actually, this is the second time today I'm with you, but the first time that they're listening to.
Yeah, that's true. I'm good. I'm good. You know,
how's farm life?
Ranch life.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. There's a difference, right?
There is a difference.
Oh, okay.
Farmers do crops and some livestock. Ranchers do livestock and some crops. Where's your emphasis? And, and the crops that I've facilitated, hay or livestock. So it's a livestock driven. The vegetables or the produce or that type of thing, that's small. That's vegetable. That's small gardening. Commercial side
on
or
the agricultural edition of the Advancement Podcast
today. Hey, when you live in a town like I do, having an agribusiness is kind of par for the course, and
Well, I think it's par for the course in a lot of America. We don't always pay attention to it. We just go to the grocery store and mind our own business, and we forget about you guys who are out there sweating.
Oh, baby. Yeah. We're not going to take time to talk about what's going on in the markets out there and that kind of stuff right now. But,
it's a crazy world we live in.
Life is good. So, this past when this podcast comes out, it'll be 2 Sundays back. But in trying to ease back into churches that are opening, we're starting to work our way around to some different places. I've heard some great things. Pastors talking about and checking it out online. You hear pastors talking about respecting. I heard a pastor say yesterday, I want to hug all of you. Yeah. I want to hug you so much, but I'm hugging you on the inside because we're not going to do that. Yeah. Pastors talking about respecting people and doing a great job. But I also came across a pastor who stood in the pulpit and said, people wearing masks are stupid. Said there's no real threat. This is all just made up.
Oh, okay.
The conspiracy guy. And I was like, are you serious? It was like, what?
Yeah.
Even if you think that, to say it from the pulpit, come on now.
Yeah.
But
some things you should say, some things you should not.
Yeah. And I mean, there is a context, right?
Sure.
But it's just funny to watch the differences and what's going on around the country.
Because you have those outliers that have been meeting the whole time and never even closed down.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
We've seen them square off against the local authorities and things like
that. I know some that just were small enough that they went that they did that, and the local authorities never even saw it.
Noticed.
Never noticed.
Yeah.
Nobody paid attention. Everybody was. The rest of us were quarantined.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's I was thinking about the differences in leaders yesterday, and at the same time I was thinking about our time recording today for the podcast, and I've noticed some trends in leaders that we talked about early on in COVID. We actually had guests on, and that was Jeannie Clarkson, and she's a psychologist, and we talked
smart
about
lady.
Yes, very smart lady, and we talked about burnout and how to manage yourself during the COVID.
Right.
But I think one of the things that pastors tend to, senior leaders or even staff pastors, if we're not careful, we tend to really identify with the ministry so heavily that when the ministry's doing well, we're doing well. When the ministry's doing bad, we're doing bad.
Right.
You know, we get depressed based on attendance or offerings or whatever. If we're so tied to the ministry in our persona that it drives our emotional health and our mental health in many cases. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a connection. I don't know that it's avoidable, because you also find people that are in sales and in business that same connection can be made. But I actually have a concern that if pastors aren't careful, that I mean, being absent from your congregation for 8, 10, 12 weeks, whatever it was, or whatever it may be for those that haven't opened yet, you know, it's very easy, pastors, to get so built up and excited about coming back,
right,
and being with your people. And if you're, and if things don't come back well, the numbers aren't there, you don't get to hug, you're trying to, there was a Facebook post by a staff guy after they reopened that he had to be the example. He said there were people breaking the rules. They were trying to hug and touch, and he was having to, unfortunately, kind of be the police and be a leader and resist that. And people were like, why, and people were offended. There's a combination of things here that, if we're not careful, I think could be dangerous to our pastoral leaders, their psyches, their emotions. I mean, let's be real. You called me the first week after reopening, and you were mad and you were complaining about the excuses and the people, and were you not?
Oh yeah.
You were livid.
I mean, because the problem is with us pastors. I mean, we live in a social media world,
right?
So we see everything that everyone is doing. So it's very difficult for us to take I'm not ready to come back to church, but I'm going to a water park, floating the river, shopping at whatever place I want to, that kind of stuff. And that's what's difficult for us, because, for us, church is everything. And it's hard for us to accept from other people that that's not their everything, which, the argument is, should it be their everything? Blah, blah, blah. I get that. But my question to you is, how do we manage that? Because I don't think that's going to get better.
I don't think it's going to get better like quickly either.
I mean, maybe by the end of the year, maybe by fall, hopefully. That's maybe me being too optimistic. I don't know.
And that's if there's no resurgence.
Right.
So
which there was no resurgence of the Spanish flu.
That's correct.
So
of course, that's correct. Now they also had a vaccine kind of in the works, because the Spanish flu, before it got to America, had this global component.
And depending on what conspiracy theory you hear, we might have a vaccine. Yes. You don't know, but whatever.
Right. I think so. So let's just really, this topic came into my heart and in my mind when we were preparing for what we talked about last time in Defying the Wind, that a pastor and people in ministry have to have different measurements for wins in their own life.
Yeah.
How do you define the win versus corporate wins? Because if the only time I win as a leader is when if the only time a pastor wins is when the congregation wins, then I have hinged all of my success, all of my joy on a group of people that I don't really have control over.
Right.
I mean, you have, in your acknowledgement, These people were choosing to go to the beach, choosing to go to the lake, choosing to go to these things instead of choosing to come to church. You don't have control over their choices.
I don't.
You know, we talked about SMART goals in the last episode, and the idea that the component in that you have to set these goals around things as much as possible around things you have control over.
Right.
And I think it's that there's a teetering edge that pastors stand on when they are that tied to when their personal victories, their personal joy is always tied to the corporate win.
Yeah.
When they don't have good, clearly defined personal wins.
Yeah.
I do think that there's a place where we also individually, just like corporately, we should have some eternal measurements.
Right.
You know, what are personal wins? I think they're categories. We should have some ministry wins.
Okay.
There should be a portion tied to the corporate, but I also need to have personal stuff that's not tied to the local church, but still tied to Jesus and tied to my spirituality and even tied to eternal things.
Yeah.
I think for those that are married, I think there should be family wins. You know, if you're working out or if you're losing weight, there are things we can create places for us to win that are outside of that. And I don't know that we intentionally or consciously do that all the time. And not doing that creates big space for increased burnout and some of the things we face.
Okay. So what are some more things that we can do? I mean, cause right now, you know, some of us are finding, you know, I expected to be a little less busy during this time, but I found I was a little more busy during this time because not only did I had to do what I was doing to begin with, now I have to almost shepherd two congregations, one online and one in the building. How can we set some healthy boundaries? Because, you know, that's the key into not having burnout is boundaries and having some clearly defined ways that we disconnect from what we're doing and engage in our personal life. So how do we
I don't know
those?
I don't know that it's just boundaries.
Okay.
Because I can set boundaries all I want, and if I stay inside the boundary, where I cordon myself off to,
right,
is there's no satisfaction.
Sure.
There's no wins. Then that can push me into burnout just as fast, also.
Right.
So in the context of that's actually a great observation that you feel like you're shepherding two congregations.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because not only do I feel like I have to engage with people that are there, I also feel like even as the live stream's going, I feel the pull to engage with people that are choosing to be online. You know, it's tough. You feel like you're pulled in two different directions.
Okay. So there's a couple of things we can do there, just practical moments.
Right.
In your sermons or in our services, we have to have a moment where we welcome the people on the live stream. There are some lessons we can learn from the larger churches that have been doing these live stream components for a long time, whether it being broadcast or on the web. You know, there is a point in your sermon you need to know where the cameras are.
Uh-huh.
You need to know where you can't walk out of the light, but there's also a way for you to engage the audience there, look at it. You know, in your case, you're using a teleprompter now. One of the things that people talk about is putting a camera right by your teleprompter. So when you look at that note, it looks to the online audience, I'm engaging you for a moment. I'm pulling away from this group here. So there's those short engagement moments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like us sitting here. If I turn to look at the camera, that kind of thing.
But we don't have a teleprompter.
No. But so part of that is just learning a new habit in the delivery in the moment. There was a church that I attended for a while. It was a larger church. When they did the offering component during service, in the building, they cut to another camera, and they had a pastoral staff person who spoke just about the offering and giving, spoke strictly to the online people. So they did a cut.
Yeah.
So someone engaged that audience strictly for giving, and they cut back to that. They had this online pastor who was also working the live stream and was preparing to do the prayer piece. So that's what that is taking some of your staff. Some of that could be done. You can engage your staff on the Sunday morning expression,
right,
so that you don't have to feel like you're, other than in that communication piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's acknowledging them, welcome, for years, we've all watched Joel Osteen. He was kind of the first one, that would welcome everybody who was watching by television. He'd do his little spiel. Yeah. We all knew it by heart because it's the same kind of spiel. And that's okay. And you're welcome. It can be a part of it. I think the shepherding piece during the week, if that's where the tension is, I don't know. Is that where your bigger tension is?
Some of it is. Some of it's not. I mean, you feel like almost you have to put out, not only do you have to put out content on Sunday morning, but you feel now the pull, because people are online more, the pull to put out content during the week online as well. And so, and then you feel like you're having to engage people that were online during the week. And it's you feel the pull for both, and that's not to say that wasn't there a little bit.
It just feels like it's more.
It's just more now because, honestly, probably half, probably because we've only had about 30-40% of our church show up. About half of our church is online right now. So really it is split down the middle.
Okay.
Let's take a moment and hear a word about advancement.
Do you feel like your church is stuck in a rut? Then we've got the answer for you here at Advancement. Do you need some personal coaching or maybe some leadership coaching? We can help you out. Contact the Advancement team at info@advancement.cc or check out the website at advancement.cc.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
This goes back to something we hinted at in some other previous podcasts, but the idea that during this COVID season, this was a great time for a reset.
Yeah.
And adjusting your schedule. And if you know that you need to do that, then the problem is that most of us want to go right back into what we had,
right?
But we need to say that doesn't exist anymore. So what do I do differently? I can tell you that personally, we've taken a hard look at our schedule, and you and I talk. We've now dedicated Mondays to podcasts. We were doing trying to rank
there,
everywhere. Yeah. This is podcast day. Monday we do recording, and after you're gone, I get the editing done. This is my day, and this is what I do.
Yeah.
I don't set any meetings. I'm also been doing some content development, very specific stuff. And if you look at my calendar, which I've got right over here, I could show you that it says that I've got blocks where I'm taking what's my best time of the day, and I've had to reset, and I'm doing things differently post-COVID than I did pre-COVID. And so for a pastor who says, well, I've got this, well, if you know that there's an online component and you need to do content, okay, so now that means I come in. Does that mean that I carve out 30 minutes 5 days a week and sit down in front of the camera and just do a 5-minute video? I do 10 minutes to prep, and I do a 5-minute online devotional. And if I carve out an hour, then I can take that whole hour and I can also respond to everything that's out there that I need to respond to. Read the thread from Sunday, and if I need to comment to somebody, if I need to put in an hour a day or 30 minutes in my calendar and become disciplined, then I can do that.
Yeah.
So there's a opportunity to do some reset and some adjustment.
Yeah.
Now,
and I think part of that is right. You're just adjusting to a new normal.
Yeah.
And the problem with this, the problem with what we've just gone through, it's basically taken everything we thought that was normal, flipped it on its head, and now we're having to readjust, which we don't like to do.
That's right.
But from a leadership standpoint, that's good. I mean, now's a good time to set new normals for your church and new normals for your staff and so on and so forth and things like that.
So how do you define some of it? Let's talk about the wins. These would be congregational ministry wins.
Okay.
If I know that there's an online component, then a group of people not in the building, do I say, well, if I get to have a meaningful text or interaction with 3 people or 1 person a day who's in the online audience.
Yeah.
Now, if you in a church your size, the larger the church, it would be different.
Sure.
But you can say you can say that's a win.
Probably messaged 30 people yesterday.
And that might be a little extreme. It might be a little extreme. Could be. Todd might be a little obsessive. Just slightly obsessive. But
hey, there's hard workers, and then there's people that don't message 30 people on a Sunday.
Well, yeah. Look. I mean, I'm not saying that's not. But if all 30 had responded, and you've been trying to have conversation with 30 people at the same time.
Well, I did, but I mean, I'm a great multitasker, so it's good. And some of them have responded even today, and I've been, they didn't all come in at one time.
I know.
You just adjust
but I think what I'm saying is, if you say, I've got this many people that are out in that realm, in that circle, in that group, how many, you don't need to talk to them all every week. If they had been in the building, you probably wouldn't have talked to all 30 of those people.
Maybe. I might have tried, but probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So what's a healthy number for you to say, okay, this is, remember, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Okay, I can do this. I can do this regularly, because if I do 30 this week, but now I only do 10, time happens, and I only do 2 next week. And it's not, then there's no wins in it. It's
right.
It remains it remains like quarantine and everything else, just stuff thrown up in the air and inconsistent. So creating something consistent where you can say, okay, I've checked that off. That's a win. I did enough. I may do more, but this is where I'm after. That law of just enough that we talk about. How much is enough? I can't do everything, but what's the minimum I can do that creates that victory piece, that win? So maybe you shouldn't do 30 every Sunday afternoon.
Well, no, I don't every Sunday afternoon.
I know.
Well, and probably more the reason why I'd pushed a little more this Sunday afternoon, because we're getting to the point now to where most people are getting back to normal. So I wanted them to know that, hey, as you get back to normal, don't forget us, and don't forget to put us back in your schedule. So it was a strategic 30 text messages. So
I know, but I'm also, but it's a great opportunity to say that we need to create moments we need to create short-term wins in everything we do, and not just look for the big win.
Sure.
And when we live our life as ministers around Sunday, we're looking for one big win a week.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't win, then we're throwing off our game. So we have to create moments of what's a win in your family every week?
I come home and mom's not in a bad mood.
You have no control over that.
Well, that's true.
So what's a win?
Really, a win once a week is just getting to spend some meaningful time with my kids.
So how much time is meaningful, and define what's meaningful?
Usually, if I can find 1 or 2 evenings a week that I spend most of the time with them, enjoying some good quality time with them.
How much is most of the time?
Well, I mean, usually it happens once a week, at least once a week.
No. You said spend most of the time that
so
evening.
When I get home,
is that 1 hour? Is that
when I
4 hours?
When I get home from work, to the time they go to bed, spending that amount of time.
So what time do you get home?
I usually get home about 4:15, 4:30.
Okay.
And they go to bed about 8. So about 3 or 4 hours in one day.
So you're looking to spend 3 to 4 hours twice a week.
Right.
That's what I heard you say. That's the objective.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Right. But that's the minimum. That's a win. If I get two evenings a week where I get to spend most of that time with the kids. Okay.
Even if it's doing an activity that they enjoy doing.
Well, that's acceptable. You define quality. You said quality time. Now define quality time. What's not quality?
Running around doing church stuff, a church event. Even though we're together, that's not quality time.
All right.
Because I'm not focused on them.
What else is not quality time? Is shopping quality time?
I mean, it can be. They enjoy doing that with me. And I try to also, because I have 4 kids, sometimes I have to divide and conquer. So sometimes I'm spending quality time with 1 or 2 of them as opposed to spending quality time with all of them. So I break that up just depending on what's going on. So
sitting around watching TV.
Oh, that's quality time. Yeah, they love doing that. My kids, which you're going to think this is a nerd thing, my older 2 love playing Fortnite with me. And so
I don't think that's a nerd thing.
So the other night we played 3 or 4 games of Fortnite and won 2 of them. But they were talking about, we did that on Saturday night, and they were going around telling everybody at church that we had won Fortnite. So it made a big difference to them. So I'm finding that is some big quality time for my kids playing games.
So what I heard you just say is though that you need to make sure you mark that out.
Yeah. I have to make sure and get that time with them.
Okay. What about what's a win? What's a crystal win?
We probably for us, something we try to put in place is a date night.
Which has been dang hard lately.
It's been hard, but we've been doing pretty good. At least, about every other week's about a good pace for us. Practically with 4 kids, every week is tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just from a monetary standpoint, because we got to pay a babysitter for 4 kids, and that's not cheap. So about a date night every other week works for us. We're a little ahead of that pace right now. So I'm doing good in that number, but it's our anniversary time of the year. So that's why we're a little bit ahead of that pace.
Understand. Saturday's mine.
Yeah. Hey, how many years now?
28.
28. All right.
Woo!
We just celebrated 11. So I'm a little bit behind you.
You're behind.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
And so but for us, we've been a little bit ahead of the curve on that one. So, but those are
just some basic wins but the reality is
those are more under my control than people showing up to church.
Which is why they become important.
Right.
Because if you've got to have some things that you can win at. I mean, you can put a win in your devotional life.
Sure.
Devotions can be a win for your personal spirituality. I would even say, I mean, from an eternal perspective, there are some wins. How many people are prospects, let's say, to new people to coming to Jesus, are you personally working on that? You can't control when they make a decision.
Sure.
But how many of those relationships do you have and are you engaging in? I added a new one this past week, and awesome. I've got 3 that I'm consistently working at this point in time, and it's I don't have control over their decision,
right,
but I have control over the time I spend and the investment I make.
Right.
And so every time I get to have that text or that phone call or something that I go, okay, that felt like a win.
Yeah.
So I'll create those personal wins even in those spiritual areas.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, then what happens is we open ourselves up for a quicker road to depression or a quicker road for the enemy, for those who believe in spiritual warfare, that the enemy can attack us.
Right.
And so in those components, these defining personal wins separate from the congregational win is just critically important for leaders.
So would you say that's even more important right now?
I really think it is because we were so much of the identity is tied to that preaching piece that was missing, and then coming back and the people not being there.
Yeah. It takes the winds out of your sails.
It just knocks the wind. And
Yeah.
I think that if we're not careful, if they don't come back fast,
yeah,
I mean, we started our summer slump early,
yeah,
essentially.
pretty much. Yeah.
And what we're really, our attendance we're seeing in most of our churches is in these early days of the comeback is less than what we would see in a normal summer slump.
Right.
In your case,
Oh, sure.
you said you were looking to break 500.
Yeah.
And now you just want to get back to 300.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, talk about knock the wind out of your sails.
Yeah. Yeah. Just getting back. It may be some work just getting back to where we were.
Right. And that can be discouraging. And so we've got to create some offset.
Yeah.
Because the enemy is always working on our self-esteem and that emotional component in pastors. And let's be honest, most pastors tend to be a little more emotionally charged than they just tend to be a little more emotionally charged.
We're emotional beings, man. We can't help it.
Yeah. And not that you fit that category as much as a lot of pastors.
But I am emotional, not as much as probably other guys I've
You're right.
met,
That's
but
what I'm saying.
I do have a couple of emotions in there,
you do.
deep down inside.
Yes. But those pastors that are in that have a high pastoral acumen, where they really are great lovers of people, and they have that peace. This becomes really critical for them, because it'd be very easy to be wounded in your heart.
Yeah.
You know,
for sure.
For the pastors that take, there are some pastors that when someone leaves their church, I know pastors of mega churches that if someone leaves the church, they take it personally.
Yeah.
And when they view that high family component in the church, if someone leaves and they take it, it feels like a personal wound. You need to. That's another place you got to have these personal wins, because if everything's tied to that corporate context, and all your victories or all your losses, then it's just not balanced.
I was told over the past couple of weeks, and I was getting a coaching session. Which coaching is valuable, Tim, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it is.
Is coaching valuable?
It is. It is valuable.
As
a matter of fact, I coached you just a little bit ago.
Sure. And then a friend of ours, Mike Harper, told me, because I was asking him, how do we make the shift from 300 to 500? Those have been our conversations. And he said, the way you do that is you stop the people that are growing churches that are larger, stop worrying about the people that leave and move on. He's saying, I'm not telling you to be heartless. I'm not saying that at all. You could mourn their loss, but tomorrow you get over it and you move on, because there's so many other people in your church that are being there. And I think right now, one thing I've had to focus on in my personal life is focus on the ones that want to be there. Focus on the ones that are there. Focus on the ones that are showing up, and stop worrying about the ones that aren't there, because the ones that are showing up deserve the best of me that they get.
That's really good.
And that's really what I've focused my time on and my energy on. I've got to focus on the ones that are there, that are committed, that want to be a part. And I'm robbing them of something if I'm focusing on the ones that don't really want to be there.
This idea comes back to the idea of what I have control over.
Right.
What I have, the cool thing about following Jesus is there's so much we don't have control over.
Right.
And God could do it all without us, but he's chosen not to. So there are things we do have control over. And when those things are right and intersect with God, man, there's supernatural things happen.
Sure.
Now, if I'm doing if the things I'm doing and I have control over, and we're not seeing eternal fruit in our church or in our personal life, then maybe I'm not doing the right things. There are some other things I have control over that I may need to change, because there is a fruit piece to this. Right. But so what's your takeaway?
The two things that you said is differentiating the wins. at home and personal life and in church. And that, for me, this is a constant my whole life. How much is just enough? Because sometimes I want to do it all now, but it's incremental advancement. That's what we teach here at Advancement, is incremental advancement.
Well,
and allow things to work, allow things to move, allow things to begin to work that you put into place. And,
this is a journey of faith.
Yeah.
And if I keep the pedal to the metal all the time,
burn us out, burn up the engine.
I burn up the engine. I burn my fuel economy. I'm stopping at the gas. I'm having to stop at the gas station a lot more. There's a right pace,
right?
And so a lot of this we're talking about is pace,
finding the right pace.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Another good episode, Tim.
All right. We'll see you guys next time on the Advancement Podcast.
If you would like to keep this content coming, all Tim and Todd ask is $1 per show. See how to give, maybe even sponsor an episode or series on the website advancement.cc. Until next week, continue to advance the mission of Jesus.